Mutants and variants, bangles and flirkins, you are now tuned in to the Disneyholics Show.
Hello and welcome to the Disneyholics Show. That's Jenn Diz.
And that's Myke TV.
We have a marvelous episode in store for you today. We'll review Season 2 of Loki, the Marvel's feature film, that new Spider-Man video game, and play an Uncanny X-Men game.
We have a lot of fun media coming out again. I feel like there's a little bit of a lull somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But we're back. And let's start off with Loki, the season 2. I almost said series 2. Season 2 of Loki on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I watched it in real time, and I know you're still catching up, but you watched the season finale with me, which was the big episode, and just funny enough, the way the show is structured, time matters as much as you want it to, the passage of time, because of the theme of the show. So I think if you wanted to catch up, it wouldn't hurt, because then you'd see how everything came about, because it's all about like time travel and fixing issues in time and multiverses. But wow, really good season, ended strong. What did you think?
So I only watched the first episode and the last episode, so I have some bookends going on here. But like you were saying, I feel like you can get away with that because like something about it kind of is self-explanatory if you know the vibe of the show and you can put it together for the last episode. But now I'm so curious to see how we got from point A to point B. So like I'm really excited to go back and continue the rest of the series and watch it. I just haven't had the time in the middle of that there. So woo, but I really liked it. It, of course, has an amazing cast. Really good. I don't know if in this situation it would be called cinematography, but the colors, the aesthetic, everything of the show, just like season 1, very well done. Acting's amazing. And the music, we keep talking about the music. I know it keeps getting brought up like outside of conversations about Loki. And I love the soundtrack so much that adds a big piece of it for me. So I really, really liked it.
Yeah, the score is so good. There's times where it gives me chills when it's revealing whatever the reveal is going to be, and it's pulsing up to it. And even just the title score is really good. Speaking of cast, you mentioned, Kiwi Kwan is in this season, who we all know and love from movies like Goonies and Indiana Jones. And more recently, he won the Academy Award Best Supporting Actor or Golden Globe, one of those prestigious awards for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That's right.
Also a complex time travel movie. So
yes.
Very interesting. But he fits right in as Ouroboros or Obi, which in mythology is the snake that eats its own tail. So there you go again with this whole passage of time and a loop and where's the beginning, where's the end. Very much a theme that the Loki show explores. So if you're a fan of things like time travel or even just the MCU and you haven't seen everything, Loki is kind of standalone enough that you can enjoy the entire series. So I would give it a recommendation, and I'm going to review it 5 out of 5 spaghetti plates because there's some spaghetti things in there. I guess this is spoilery. We could spoiler. It's been out for a while. But yeah, you turn into spaghetti if you do the wrong thing in one of the areas in the show. So very cool.
Oh yeah, I haven't gotten to that scene yet. But I was like, what is this?
You've seen the spaghetti, right? Yeah, you've seen them turn into it.
Definitely have this thing going on with this spaghetti. Yes, I would also give it 5 out of 5. And I was thinking as you're talking about the casting and our good old French short round, he is now typecasting almost into this like multiverse character, but that's like the best place to be typecast because it's endless.
Yeah.
So
and gadgets. He's always doing stuff with like gadgets and like smart, like real smart.
He did kind of feel like an older short round. This,
yeah,
right. It's kind of cute. That. I love that. Anyways,
and then the regular cast is there. Jonathan Majors returns as Kang and variants of Kang. One of them, Victor Timely, which is a really interesting character. And I think... Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, I don't know. Was he in season 1 at all?
Yes.
Okay, I
He
thought
Who
I remembered
Remains
him.
at the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Jonathan Majors is now on the cut list, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
got a
he's
little
on the
bit
cutting
canceled.
floor now.
Yeah.
But that guy is a good actor.
Very
Because
good.
I kept staring at him when he was playing this new character. And I'm like, wait, do I? It was in the first episode, right? Or was
Yeah.
it the final episode?
He's in both, Victor
Both.
Timely, yeah.
And I was like, have I met him before? I swear I have. And then even when I realized, I think he was in season 1, it still didn't put together that he's Kang until some moment where I realized he's a variant of him. Like, somebody had to say something for me to realize he is also a variant of Kang before I realized it was the same actor. Like, that's huge. Like, to be able to play that character so well that you don't even realize it's literally the same person. So I don't want to give him hats off, but like kind of give him some hats off on the side.
He's really good. Everything I've seen
That's a shame.
Jonathan Majors in, he's been really good. So hopefully he can figure out his personal life and issues and whatever. But I don't know. A lot of the fans are out there saying, hey, let's not just kill the character of Kang with the Jonathan Majors drama as the actor, but let's recast Kang for the new movies coming up. Also, a variant could be played by anybody, right?
That's kind of the beauty of beauty of this multiverse and all these variants coming out is that they really can. And like we were talking earlier about how in season 1 of Loki, we saw a bunch of different Lokis.
Yeah.
Sylvie technically is also a Loki. So like you can also have different Kangs. I don't know why they decided to make him the same actor necessarily. Could have already been somebody different. And we could just move on to this new Kang moving forward. And I think you were telling me a little bit more about the fans, and I want to hear more about this too, about how much Kang has to do with the future of where we're going in this path. And it would totally ruin it, or it would skip over a lot, right?
Yeah.
If we did demolish him out. So like tell us about that.
A good example is now that some of the phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe have ended that we know and love. Like think about everything up to Avengers Endgame. Now imagine halfway through something happened where they had to recast or remove Thanos from the storyline altogether. It
it'd be so weird.
It'd be chaotic and maybe some things wouldn't work. Hopefully they would figure it out. But that's the equivalent of what's happening now. So the next couple of phases and big team-ups in the movie theaters are Avengers Kang Dynasty. And the whole thing is about Kang manipulating and all his variants and all that stuff. And then there's a second Avengers movie where either it's the repercussions of what happened with Kang or it's the second battle against Kang. And then he was already in Ant-Man Quantumania, sort of planting seeds there as Kang the Conqueror. And then we saw him in Loki season 1 as He Who Remains, and then this season as Victor Timely. So he's all over the place. He's got his fingers in all the MCU buckets. So it's going to be hard for them to figure out how to unwind that without recasting him. So hopefully they recast him, because if they need to change the story, then who knows what the next few years of Marvel movies look like and what happens to all these threads they've already started pulling at.
Yeah. And it's such a new piece of it that I want to see the story too. Like, I'm eager to see more of his character, and whether it be somebody else, a stranger, someone that looks completely different, whatever it is, I think it'd be better than getting rid of him. Yeah. For sure.
It's interesting too, because Kang is one of those really well-written villains where he's a villain depending on your point of view. And so, like, one of the things his variant is trying to do, which is He Who Remains on the Loki series, he's trying to keep timelines tidy by not letting there be so many. And in order to do that, you can't let people make decisions that are not already pre-planned, or else it creates as a branch in the timeline. But in his mind, he's just trying to keep everything nice and organized so that this loom that he built also doesn't break. So in his mind, everything is right. He's righteous, and he thinks he's helping people.
He does have a few moments where I feel bad for him. Like, even just the way the acting was done was like, I'm like, oh wait, he's actually trying to do something good, but he's also a villain for other reasons around the same problem, right? Yeah. It's very complicated, but really cool how he can be both at once.
And one of the storylines in Loki that is just so trippy and hurts my brain to think about, but also is like very ethical. It makes you think, what would you do? So imagine you found out that there was a variant of you in another multiverse. There's another Jenn doing something else, but in order to clean everything up, you have to clip that. You have to clip it. You have to clip that branch of the timeline, and everybody in that timeline and multiverse, including your other self who could be super happy, they're just all gone, just disappear.
Right.
And now do that to hundreds of them.
Right.
That's what we think are the good guys, the protagonists. That's what they're trying to do. And Kang is no, I'm sorry. I got it completely opposite. That's what the TVA and Kang is trying to do, is clip those and make sure there's not too many. Whereas Loki and his gang of what's it, Motley Crue gang in Loki season 2, they're trying to say, well, let's let those branches expand, let those variants live their lives, but then they realize there's nowhere for those strings to go. And so everybody, the entire universe has to go away, or a couple of branches. That's your would you rather. Would you rather keep a handful of branches, or just say, F it all and nobody gets to live? What do you do?
Okay, what would you do?
I would, I would try to rebuild what Kang tried to do, but maybe in a different way, knowing that there are going to be variants that just have to be clipped, and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I would do it too.
Right.
It's like, I've always thought about those situations. It's like, less people you have to kill off, the better. And that's the only thing I can think of, right? So it's like, fine, it's either everybody. It was everyone but the sacred timeline, is that right?
Yeah, that's one of the options.
So it's like everyone else or a couple of the branches. Like, yes, go for the couple, I guess.
Yeah, like
terrible
let
way.
a couple of them go.
No good decisions in that one.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting. So you were saying, like, you want to see this whole thing through, and to my knowledge from other comic book fans, is that if this plays out similar to some of the storylines in the comic books, we're going to get to a point in one of these upcoming Avengers movies where all of the Avengers and heroes from all these multiverses are going to have to choose just one that can survive.
Wow.
And they're all fighting because they each think that theirs is the right one.
Yes.
And these are good guys that we know and love, like Captain Marvel, Captain America, Iron Man. They have variants that are trying to save their verse. And they're up against the ones we know from, I think it's called the 616. That's the one we've known from the Avengers MCU. Who gets to stay? Who gets to go? And in the comic books, Kang, and in another version, I think it's Doctor Doom, they create this thing called Battle World, and they somehow combined most of the verses into a patchwork version of it, and then they all have to fight in the survival of the fittest.
Oh my god!
And so that's something we might be able to see. Battle Royale. Imagine they bring back, and there's rumors, they bring back like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. as variants of themselves, thinking that they're in the right universe and we're in the wrong one. It brings up a lot of moral questions and ethics, and it's like, I don't know, that's tough.
It's very tough.
And cool that a comic book movie can make you think about it.
Yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah. I feel like Marvel in the last few years has been getting a lot more personal and relatable.
Yeah.
Like WandaVision, I think was one of the first ones where I was like, I actually like really relate to this story versus like it being someone that can fly.
Yeah.
Or super strength. Like these things that aren't really possible, but then it's like mental health and like ethical choices and stuff like that. And then otherwise you usually see them just like tearing down an entire city to save whatever, right? So it's like a little more relatable. I think that's really cool. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this just me dreaming? I think it might actually be Thanos instead. Is Kang part of that e-ticket attraction that's supposed to come to Avengers Campus? I said supposed to come on purpose.
Oh, yeah. The first version that we heard about at an expo years ago was going to be a trip to Wakanda, and it was all the Avengers. No Kang, no Thanos. And then the next time they re-announced it, kind of changed the concept art for the ride vehicles. They did announce it as King Thanos.
That's where I'm maybe getting Kang from.
Yeah, and then King Thanos is a variant of Thanos. He's a version of Thanos that won the Infinity War. And so he's supposed to be the big bad in the attraction, the e-ticket attraction at DCA. But now who knows where it's going to go? It's been a year or so.
Yeah.
Haven't heard about it.
Supposed to come. I don't know.
But I do think they're on the right track with that attraction, because if they go the multiverse route, they can update it whenever they need to, and it doesn't have to abide by strict timelines or only one cinemaverse or whatever. So that's interesting. One last thing about Loki. This is going to be a spoiler for the ending. So you know how we said, what would we do if we had to decide how to save those timelines? What Loki did was, what is it called? Not even a Hail Mary. It's called like, he did something that wasn't even an option, that we didn't even think of. He sacrificed himself, knowing that he's now going to have to sit on a throne for maybe the eternity. And he's literally holding these branch timelines with his hand. I got goosebumps. It's just such an epic character arc for Loki, who is just like a knowing brother of Thor, and he's known for being mischievous. Of all the different godlike characters, like people disrespect him or they don't appreciate him. He sometimes is trying to do good, but it depends again on your point of view. And by the end of Loki's series, at the end of season 2, he's now literally holding the MCU in his hands. Like everything we're going to see going forward, it only exists because this being is holding it all together. It's just wild how that ended up ending.
It's great.
Like that.
It's like one of those character arcs where like the character finally got a heart.
Yes.
Or something, you know what I mean?
Oh. And it's something that I wish they could have done with Star Wars sequel trilogy, where Kylo Ren, completely making a detour here, but Kylo Ren did so much bad. He killed Han Solo, for Pete's sake, his father, that how do you redeem someone like him? Even if by the end we kind of wanted him to turn around and be good, you can't really redeem someone who did evil unless they make a sacrifice where they're not really redeemed, but they're saving people. It's a very slim margin to find.
It's interesting because it's kind of Darth Vader.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In the same universe there.
Yeah. And Darth Vader is still redeeming himself by even coming back as Anakin Force Ghost, helping Ahsoka and all these things. He's still trying to
make up
for his sins. Yeah, and so, I mean, Loki killed lots of people. He went to New York City, in Avengers 1 and was wreaking havoc. He let the aliens through. He's done all kinds of bad stuff. So now he's paying his price, but we're all being saved because of him. Wow. Yeah, it's just really cool. Other fans seem to be loving the show. Usually when I post my own review on Instagram, I'll get people right back. But a lot of people responding to my Loki review that I recently posted, that they all love it too. It was a really good series. So that's good. We also are here together in New York City, by the way, recording our podcast.
What? You guys, this is the first time I've seen Myke's podcast setup. I've never even been in the room where he's always recording from, and now I'm here too.
Ba-dum-bum.
What?
So I took Jen over to our local Alamo Draft House, where I always go to see my movies. So we had some dinner and drinks, and we went to go watch on the premiere day, I think on the Friday of its opening, The Marvels. So the new MCU film in theaters, The Marvels, with Captain Marvel, with Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel. And they each came from different storylines, and they've all come together in this movie, The Marvels. So, out the gate, would you recommend this movie to people?
Absolutely. I was not expecting to either. I was going in it with pretty low expectations, but excited for it because I generally enjoy all the movies anyway. But it really surprised me. I really had a great time watching it, and it was a lot of fun, and also I thought it was really good. What about you?
Yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's like a kick-ass movie where there's like a lot of really cool ways that they choreographed the fighting, and not just fist fighting, but the special and superpowers. The way they use the powers and then combine them with each other, because you have a team up of 3 people with similar energy-based powers. It was really fun. It was really creative. I didn't think it took itself too seriously, which made it fun as well. It
almost had that Ant-Man vibe, but where it's like kind of like comedy also.
Yeah. Right? Woman director, we always love that. Shout out. you know what? It's not doing that good in the box office. So that's why we hope you're listening to this and you take our recommendation as Marvel, Disney fans. We think it's a good movie. So I don't know. There's a lot of negativity that was coming about just before it was released. Also, adjacent to that, there's just drama with trying to figure out what Marvel is going to do with the MCU based on all that stuff we talked about earlier about Jonathan Majors. So it's a weird time right now for Marvel. And unfortunately, it looks like it's impacting the box office. But review-wise, I'm hearing good things. Other people who've seen it have told us they also unexpectedly loved it.
Right, yeah. It's really cool. There's also, like, there's a lot of things about this movie that I enjoyed. And one of the things is most of us watch movies and in our head we're judging it as we watch it, right? We could be like, oh, that was dumb, or oh, that was cool, right? It could be either way. This movie, anything I said like, oh, why, this is kind of annoying, why are they doing it like that? They fixed it. There was things in the movie that I was like, this makes no sense, and then the women together are correcting it. So it was part of the story the whole time. It wasn't just messy like I was assuming. And then they fixed it. They kept doing that throughout the film, and I'm like, okay, that is super cool.
It's really cool when the director and the filmmakers stay a step ahead of you, but not too far. Just enough that before you really flesh out how there might be a plot hole, boom, they solved it.
And I'm like, oh, just kidding. So it was even more purposeful then, right? So like we have to have this problem that we need to solve as well in the film. There was also another thing that was like my favorite part actually is I cannot remember the actress's name, but oh my god, I almost said Kamala Harris again.
the Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel. Kamala.
They go Kamala.
Kamala something. Anyways.
Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan. There it is. Thank you. She is amazing. I love her so much and her story. If you aren't familiar with her story, go read about her as an actress. It's really, really fun. She's a true Marvel fan before acting, and this is her like first acting gig doing this character. So amazing,
the
so
actress,
fun.
I think, is Iman Vellani.
There it is.
Or something close to that. Yeah.
Iman for sure. But yeah, she is a fan in real life, and her character is also a super fan of Captain Marvel. And it is so fun seeing how a fan like us, like everyone knows I love fans, and seeing how a fan would react in these situations of becoming an actual superhero and working with her favorite superhero. Like, it's so fun to see her get caught up in these moments where she's like trying to fight and like keep things well while fangirling out at the same time. It was like so fun to watch.
And she knows, like, they use the word code names to describe the superhero names that we normally know from the comics and the movies. And there's just that whole like inside joke throughout the movie where she's trying to give Monica Rambeau a superhero code name, but Monica doesn't want that. And she kept listing out really funny ones, some of which actually made it to the comics at one point as Monica Rambeau's superhero name. But that kind of stuff, she's just such a fan. When she sees Nick Fury, she's like, oh my god, Nick Fury. Like, she knows who he is, just like we would know who he is.
Right.
It's really cool. Someone I would love her to hang out with is Peter Parker. The MCU Peter Parker. Because when he was introduced in the Captain America movie, he was doing similar things. He was so nervous. He was excited. He was making like Star Wars pop culture references.
Yes, I remember that.
In order to like get the at down, but it was giant Ant-Man. So I think they would be a fun pair. They're both from New York City, and they're both like vigilante street fighters.
Very true. That would be super fun, actually.
It'd be cool. I give the Marvels, I think I gave it 5 out of 5. And so I will stick to that, but I will say sometimes Marvel movies have a villain problem where the villain is just kind of bland or boring or not well developed or just comes in and out one movie and then they die. And we got one of those sort of paper cutout villains for this one, at least in my view. I thought she was interesting. Her motivations were like kind of valid, but I don't know. I didn't really think of her as that threatening, and I just assumed they would conquer her by the end. What did you think?
Same. And when you just said right now about you started talking about the villain, I'm like, wait, who was the villain? So I already forgot about it, which is enough said right there. But like, But we didn't get to know her character story well enough to know how, like, what to be worried about with her.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
that part was left out, and we know her motive, which I think also was very good. But we don't know anything about her strength or her capabilities or any of the stuff. We just know that she happened to get one of the bands.
Yeah.
And that was about it. So I'm like, I'm not really worried about this girl. Right? It
Right,
was kind of
yeah.
like that. I'm just like, okay.
Like,
There's
she's no
3
threat.
of them to this one random person. We were fine. So yeah, I feel the same way. And I kind of want to know more about her. But we did find out that she is married to... Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Wait, she's married to another actor.
Yes.
And is he in Captain Marvel?
He's not, but it may have also been someone we talked about on this episode.
Oh, Tom Hiddleston. Oh my goodness. I didn't even put that together. Yeah, the actor who plays Loki, Tom, is married to the actress who plays the villain in Captain Marvel in real life or in the Marvels.
Crazy.
Very, very. How fun that they get to talk about their MCU
Oh my God, it's nuts.
work.
Nuts.
And he's like, well, mine's actually better than yours. Sorry.
They probably have inside jokes all the time about, like, being from a different multiverse or something.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I will say, similar to how we were talking about those, like, ethical, moral dilemmas and existential stuff in Loki, there was a part of it in the Marvels that got me thinking a little bit. But like he said, they didn't really flesh out, is it Darbin or something?
I think so.
The villain's backstory. What they did let us know was that when Captain Marvel went to where the Kree live to destroy the thing that was making a lot of other stuff bad, I'm simplifying this right now, in order for her to destroy the thing that made everything bad, which happened to be an AI, it also impacted all the regular beings on that planet, all the Kree, and Darbin was one of them, and she was just very young. So now she's growing up thinking that all she wants to do is get revenge on this other being who came to destroy their giant AI thing, because that was helping other people. And it's just sad. It makes me just think of war in general. Mm-hmm. And like, if you're a kid, it happened in Mandalorian too.
Yeah.
He saw the horrors of what was happening with the occupation of the Empire or whatever it was, and then he grows up just like on this mission to get revenge, and that's real. Like, that's real.
Yeah.
There's kids who experience war, they're traumatized, and we see it in real life, and it's interesting seeing them bringing it to comic books as the motivations, because it is relevant and relatable, I guess.
Yeah. I did like that reveal in the movie, though, unless I had missed something before. I don't think I did, but they kept calling her the Annihilator. This is Captain Marvel. They were calling Captain Marvel the Annihilator. I'm like, what is going on? They were doing it probably half of the movie before they revealed it, and then turns out it's Captain Marvel that made the change that destroyed their planet, or to a fault. But but so then they look at her as this evil person. Meanwhile, we all think she's like, yeah, Captain Marvel, you know. So it was really well done for that part. I thought that was probably a really exciting part of the film for me.
That whole, like, is it Obi-Wan who said it well? Like, depending on your point of view or something. Mm-hmm. What's good and what's bad, and how subjective is it? Who's actually winning and losing? Very interesting. This movie, The Marvels, also set up a couple of really exciting things for us to look forward to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First, Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, she, toward the end, I think it was one of the credit scenes, spoiler warning, she went to start recruiting what we know as likely to be the Young Avengers. So now that's a comic book series. It's a group that a lot of the fans have been wanting to see for a while, ever since they introduced characters like Kate Bishop, who is like the new Hawkeye that was in the Disney Plus series. They've also introduced the kid from Thor: Love and Thunder. Oh, it was a funny name. I think she's Love, right? Her name is Love.
I think so.
Of Love and Thunder. So like Thor has this adopted daughter now, and she also is a character in the comic books. I'm not familiar with her much at all, but she's someone that they could put in the Young Avengers roster. Then there's also the twin sons of Wanda and Vision. Mm-hmm. Who in the comics are both, they're everything from in the X-Men team, but they're also on the Young Avengers teams. And so now we have a pretty good group of people.
Cassie too. Right?
Cassie, yes.
Or is she too old
No,
now?
she could be in it. So Cassie
She's like Kate Bishop's age, right?
is Kate Bishop's age, Ant-Man's daughter, so she could be part of it, as well as Peter Parker. He's right on the cusp as well, and could be
really
one of like the big popular ones in the Young Avengers. Whether or not they call the movie the Young Avengers or not, not sure. But that was just exciting. That was a little breadcrumb, and Miss Marvel is going around recruiting these folks the way that Nick Fury did, because she's a fan and she knows how Nick Fury did it. So she shows up at Kate Bishop's apartment in the dark, in the corner, like mysterious, and then tells her about this new initiative that she's working on. And Kate Bishop, I think, said yes. So we already got somebody in that's going to join. Very, very cool.
I wonder if Ned could also be on there.
Oh, he
Ned
could.
now has powers, right?
Yeah, he has Doctor Strange type of powers.
And I wonder if the man in the chair for Miss Marvel, remember the guy, her like best friend at the beginning of the series? He was like real technical.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I wonder if he's going to become somebody. I don't know.
They always need those like helpers who are on the ground to help with things.
Man in a chair.
So Young Avengers, but the big tease and reveal that we've all been waiting for came to fruition. I can't even believe it. We're seeing this now. We saw a little bit, so let's take a step back. We've all been waiting for the X-Men to join the MCU ever since Disney acquired Fox, which meant that all the characters now that Marvel owns can all be produced in movies, with the exception of Spider-Man, who has to always be in movies through a Sony partnership. But everyone else now is there. And so they could have brought X-Men into the MCU anytime over the last handful of years. But they've been waiting for the right moment and really doing a slow build-up. So one of the first times that we gasped was in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So there's a scene where they're looking at variants of other characters, and Professor X shows up in almost what looks like the X-Men 1990s animated series design, including the wheelchair, the yellow, and his look. And so it was like, okay, X-Men are here. But it was also obvious that the Multiverse of Madness movie was just playing around with cameos. And it could have been anything from an Easter egg to a full-on, hey, the X-Men are coming. Because we also saw cool and weird things like Mr. Fantastic showed up there. We saw the variant of Captain America, who was played by Captain America's love interest. So there was all kinds of things. We saw Monica Rambeau's mom there as a variant of Captain Marvel. So there were so many weird things in Doctor Strange that
one. Oh, that's all from Doctor Strange?
Yeah, that's all from Doctor Strange.
I was going to say Mr. David Boner or something.
Oh, yeah, there's that one in WandaVision. We saw Ralph Boner, who we thought was Quicksilver. And it was also played by the actor who played Quicksilver in the Fox universe. So anyway, so we've been teased and teased and teased. And then another tease we got was, speaking of Miss Marvel, was in her series. And her Disney Plus series toward the end, when she was trying to explain to her friend, the one that you were talking about, she was trying to explain to him that, or he was trying to explain to her that her genes are different than others. And that she's essentially a mutant. A mutant. And then when they said that, they played the score of the X-Men animated show in the background. So there we got another tease. But now we went to go watch the Marvels and we sat through the credits, and you get to see that Monica Rambeau's character ends up, in order for her to save what was going on with the different warp hole things breaking down, she had to like seal it and leave herself in another multiverse and trap herself in some other multiverse in order for her to save her own multiverse. Or her own universe. And we see that she wakes up in a room. She's what seems to be in the 90s, because she sees her mom, who's about the age the mom was in the 90s when we saw her in Captain Marvel movie. So she doesn't even recognize Monica, who's her daughter. And then you see this blue person walk by. Huge reveal. It turns out it's Hank, who's also known as Beast, Dr. Hank McCoy, who's a professor in the X-Men group, and he was the actor that played him in this cameo in this end scene was the actor who played him in the Bryan Singer X-Men Fox universe. A lot of information that I just threw at you. But essentially what we're seeing is these multiverses coming to life and the X-Men being acknowledged as existing in the MCU through the multiverse concept. And now we have one of our characters in the MCU who's trapped in the 90s with these characters.
And it was like deep in the X-Men universe too. Like she was in their campus or whatever you want to call it, in some hospital within their unit, and like the big X on the doors behind them and everything. Like it was like full on. It wasn't like Beast showed up in the background somewhere. It was like a full on X-Men situation.
So cool. And then he goes, well, we don't know why she's here or why she doesn't remember anything, but let's talk to Charles, who we all know as Professor Charles Xavier. So it looks like we are on the cusp of some X-Men goodness. I know next year with Deadpool 3 coming out, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman from the Fox universe, is going to be in Deadpool 3. And Deadpool 3 is the first Deadpool entry that's officially part of the MCU. So everything's coming together, and it seems like with Kevin Feige at the helm of all of this, he's finding fun ways to put it all together and maybe not take things so seriously, because how can you? It's comic books. Like, let's just let the characters meet and we'll figure out how they meet, and then we get fun stories with all of them together. So Beast is part of the X-Men, and I thought it would be the perfect time to play an Uncanny X-Men game.
Okay.
Ba-dum-bum-bum. Okay, so the way this game is going to work is I'm going to name an X-Men character. By the way, there are, I want to say hundreds, but yeah, there are so many of characters that came in and out of the X-Men team, or were mutants and they were at one point part of the X-Men, or they turned bad. So there's a lot of characters for us to choose from. And the game and the challenge is, I'm going to tell you their name, and whether you know the character or not, try to describe what you think their mutant powers are.
Okay.
So guess the mutant powers based on the name. Some you'll know and some you won't. And
disclaimer, I do not know my X-Men. I know like some very lightly even then. So
yes, which will make this game even funner. And if you're listening,
for me failing, thank you.
Play along, shout out the answer. And I'm using Marvel Wiki, so if I get any of these wrong, you can send an email to Marvel's Wiki. Right. All right, I'll start with what I think is an easy one, but maybe not. Wolverine.
Okay, Wolverine becomes a Wolverine when the moon rises. Just kidding. On full moon. No, he can shoot out like blades out of his hand, and they're made out of some crazy like titanium or something. No. I know this, but not vibranium. What is it? It was the name of a conference room at my last job. What was it? Shoot, I'm forgetting it. What is it?
Adamantium.
Adamantium. I should have known that.
And then let me ask you this then.
And he can regenerate or whatever, like fix himself, heal himself.
There you go.
Okay.
So then now that you said all that, what is his mutant power? He really just has one.
Transformation.
Regenerating.
Okay.
He can regenerate his skin, his organs, so you could stab him, it'll grow back. I think it's still painful though. But in order for him to have gotten what we know as his Wolverine claws, he was experimented on by some really bad people.
That's right. After he was already a mutant.
Yeah, he was already a mutant that can survive anything because he can regenerate. So they experimented on him, swapped out his entire bone structure with adamantium bones, and then gave him those bone claws. And he survived that entire experiment because he can do that.
Can he die?
He can die, but it's probably very hard to kill him.
Because he ages.
Yeah. And he died in Logan, right?
Old forever. Yeah, I feel like he did die in Logan.
He died in Logan. But he's coming back somehow in Deadpool 3. It is weird. But that's a cool one because it's actually a tricky one. His power is really just the regenerating thing, which allowed him to survive and become something that can pull sharp knives out of his hands at will, and it probably hurts him every time it breaks the skin.
That sucks.
So that's an interesting one. Okay, next up, what is Cyclops' mutant power? Cyclops has
amazing vision. I don't know. I know he wears that reading rainbow thing. The like skinny sunglasses.
Okay, it does look like LeVar Burton's character's glasses in Star Trek: The Next
Butterfly
Generation.
in the sky. Oh yeah, I'm like
Not even reading
all
rainbow.
sorts of things.
LeVar Burton, but yeah, it does look like that.
God,
Vision
so
is related. So when Cyclops opens his eyes, a really powerful red laser beam type thing comes out of it, which can be destructive.
He's like, what's his face on The Boys? The Superman guy.
Oh,
What's his
I think.
name?
Oh,
He'd shoot the red stuff out of his eyes.
a little different because that guy is more like Superman from DC. The guy, what's his name? From The
forget
Boys.
it.
Like Patriot is someone else. But anyways, the curse. A lot of mutants feel cursed by their power.
Oh yeah, because he can't turn it off, right?
Can't turn it off.
That's why he has the reading rainbow glasses, Star Trek glasses.
Imagine every time you open your eyes, wherever you looked, you destroyed and zapped.
Oh, that is a lot of X-Men problems. I remember a couple other situations like that too.
And the fun part or interesting thing about how the X-Men mutant characters were developed when these comics first came out was that these mutant powers would show up around puberty. So it's the same time we're all going through all these nonsense things as adolescents, but then they have this added thing about this random mutant power. You don't really even know what's going to be until it happens.
Oh my god. I'd rather have one of those than other stuff that happened during puberty.
So yeah, Cyclops was the things that come out of his eyeballs. All right, what about Gambit?
Okay, Gambit. What does Gambit mean in regular life? I'm trying to remember what it means.
And he's one of the hot X-Men.
I feel like he is really good at manipulation.
Good guess. But Gambit is, we usually know him and see him either in the comics or cartoons, hopefully in the movies someday. He wears a trench coat and he has cards all the time, playing cards.
Oh.
And he'll throw the playing cards and they're like weapons. And it's very cool. But his actual power is that he can infuse inanimate objects with energy. But he made it his shtick to always be playing cards. So he carries playing cards, and that's his thing, is throwing these pink playing cards that have energy and they'll hurt you.
Oh.
So that's Gambit, one of my favorite. Okay, let's see.
I guess I have to see him in action because that does not sound that exciting.
How about Mystique? And she's been on all the sides. She's been good. She's been bad.
Oh, I know who Mystique is. Jennifer Lawrence. And she morphs into, what's the real word for that? She changes into whatever she wants to change into.
Otherwise known as a shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter, thank you.
Yes, good one. You got that one. She's a shapeshifter. Her natural state is that blue form when drawn in different ways. There's scales.
Yellow eyes, thriller eyes.
And you had mentioned she was played by Jennifer Lawrence in the younger X-Men movies, and in the old school X-Men movies in the 2000s, Rebecca Romijn. Stamos at the time, actually.
Oh, yes.
That's taking us way back. So, yeah, those are Mystique's powers. And I really like Mystique. She's one that's always conflicted. She doesn't know who she's trying to help, and sometimes she's good, sometimes she's bad. All right. This one, I hope you'll get this one. And everyone listening, I'm going to make this easy. Iceman.
He can freeze things.
Pretty much. Yeah, he can freeze things and then he can emit cold.
Is he like Frozone?
He's pretty much exactly Frozone, actually. Frozone from The Incredibles is Iceman from X-Men.
Okay.
If not influenced by or totally exactly it. And he does cool things like that Frozone does too, where he can make things to walk on.
I was gonna say, does he do the skiing on the
in
his
the
own
movies,
ice that he creates?
Iceman in the movies was still a teen in the 2000 movies, so we didn't see him at his full power, and I think they had him have a romantic relationship with somebody. Maybe it was Rogue, who is my next character for you to guess. Oh. What is Rogue?
Oh, Rogue.
Superpowers.
Rogue has a really cool like birthmark thing on her hair where she's got like a streak of white.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if it's a birthmark now that I'm realizing she's mutant. Maybe she did something weird and it messed her hair up. She can't touch people. I know that's her jam. She cannot touch people, which really sucks for her. But it's because she turns them into stone.
Oh, very close.
Am I wrong?
It's close that it can be a dangerous thing to touch. Another one of those curses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you be intimate
Yeah.
if you can't touch people? So the reason why she covers herself so she can't touch people is there's a couple of different ways her powers have been described, depending if it's in the movie or a comic book or the animated series. But essentially, the most famous thing Rogue is known for is she steals your power.
Oh.
She can take your power and make it her own.
Oh, that's really interesting, especially when she's like living in a house full of mutants.
Yes. Yeah. And
Wow.
so there's different variations. Like sometimes she steals your powers temporarily. Sometimes she'll steal your power and then you're down for the count, like for a long period of time, like all your energy is sucked out. And then sometimes I think if she touches you long enough, she could both steal your power and then kill you, purposeful or not. So that is her dilemma and her mutant power.
What would she do if she touched me? She would just know a lot about Disneyland.
She'd be like, oh my God, I now know everything about Disneyland. And then you'd just be there like withering away in the chair.
Oh my God, I just want to go to Disneyland.
But I really love Rogue a lot because growing up with the animated series of X-Men, I liked her. She has like a New Orleans accent. She was always like feisty and fun. And she's another one of those people, like we talked about the Marvels earlier in this episode and the team up dynamics. So Rogue, she can temporarily borrow your power because once she knows how to control it, it's not as scary for the person she's borrowing it from.
I love
she
that.
She can control it more.
That part of the X-Men with the puberty thing, because they're like out of control. They don't know how to like act and like control their mutant powers yet too. That's cool.
So if I'm Rogue and I need to make my soda a little bit colder, I could just tap him and be like, hey, can I just tap you real quick? I now have his ice power. I could stick my finger in my soda and turn it into a frozen Coke slushy. Yep. Very, very cool. All right, next up, X-Men Mutant Power, Nightcrawler.
Oh, we saw him in something more recent, right? Didn't he like have his movie debut in the last like 5 years?
He has not had a solo movie. He has not had a solo movie.
Not a solo movie, but didn't we see him in a film?
He was in the X-Men, both versions, the young ones and the old ones.
Okay. Nightcrawler. God dang it. Can he disappear?
Kind of.
Like,
what happens? What is he doing?
He gets like transparent or something. Like goes into the background.
Almost. That's Drax. Wait, no, that's Drax. Like, that's what Drax wants on Guardians. Aww. In Guardians of the Galaxy, he thinks he's camouflaged.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In the background, but it's not. Nightcrawler is a teleportation mutant.
Oh, that's the best one. That's the one I want to be.
And it's really cool because depending again on the version that you're watching or reading or seeing, he usually leaves like a blue mist behind wherever he teleported from, which is really cool. And I remember that from the X-Men arcade game too. You'd be like zip, 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 zip,
that's
zip.
Cool.
And he can teleport all around and you don't know where he is and he can trip you up, which is a really cool power. Oh, you asked about this next one recently when we were talking about Deadpool. Colossus.
I asked about him before.
Yeah.
I had some other conversation. Oh, I was saying he's like somebody. Who was I comparing him to?
Oh, I think Drax, actually, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Drax.
Like the big, tough one.
They're like the sweetest big tough guys, like both of them.
Yes.
Okay, Colossus is made out of like steel or something. He's very heavy and loud. He can't sneak around anywhere, the poor guy. His superpower, as I'm stalling, is his super strength.
Yes.
And he's like probably indestructible.
Very strong. And I actually don't know enough. And I can't even find out. There's so many variants of Colossus that I don't know what that metal is made out of. Is it like adamantium? Is it regular metal?
I don't know.
What did he look like before that? I'm not completely sure. I think we saw a flesh version of him that turned into Colossus in one of the X-Men movies, but it's a little foggy, so I can't remember.
Oh yeah, he's not like Hulk, who we see him go back and forth with his regular human version character into the Hulk.
Yeah.
We just see him as Colossus, so I don't know.
And so, so we've seen him in X-Men movies and in Deadpool. So
he's real
that's
shiny.
Colossus. Very shiny. And that brings
Kevin
us
Phasma.
to our last and final X-Men character.
Okay.
There are so many. I'm not going to say anyone's my favorite, but she's just so badass. And I've been waiting for her to really have a full-on movie, better story arc in an X-Men movie. Storm.
I knew it!
Storm.
This is an attraction at Universal Studios Florida that almost made me barf.
Yes.
And I don't really get sick on rides, so that was pretty intense. Storm. She can create storms and shoot lightning out of her fingers.
Out of her fingers. She might be able to do that. I think so. But essentially, you can boil it down to she can control the weather.
Okay.
At her own whim. And yeah, so if she's making lightning happen, she could also make it come to her hand and shoot it back out. I think we saw Halle Berry's version of her do something like that. I've always wanted Angela Bassett to be Storm. She's a little bit too mature now to play it if they're going to reboot X-Men. But I always thought she'd be an awesome Storm. She's just such a strong woman, female lead. And some of Storm's storylines in the comics was she grew up in Africa near Wakanda and was actually seen like a god. The same way other folks like Loki and Thor were gods to people on Earth. Mm-hmm. She was a god as well. She goes by Aurora Monroe. That's one of her human names. And she has the white hair, badass. Sometimes her eyes turn scary white when she's summoning the weather. And in the comic books, she had a love relationship with T'Challa.
Stop.
And we're never gonna... I'm gonna cry.
Hold on. Oh my god.
We're never gonna see it.
We have AI. We have AI. We can do it. Wait, so let me think. I just want to ask real quick, and this is derailing, but was X-Men and the Marvel, like the Avengers and all that stuff, were they intertwined in all the comics?
Yes.
Like very much so?
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason why it got screwed up in the cinema world is because of lawyers. All because of lawyers and contracts. So Fox owned the X-Men. Then Disney eventually owned everyone but the X-Men and Spider-Man. Sony owned the X-Men. So they're all in like different places. So now we're the closest it's been where they're all in the same studio. And Marvel, who's the creator, has their characters back, which is really nice. But yeah, in the comics, it's really cool. Spider-Man.
Like Oswald.
It's like Oswald when they brought Oswald back.
X-Men it's just like Oswald.
And the comics are fun because some of the characters that I know we talk about and we enjoy their comedy, like Spider-Man, She-Hulk, Deadpool, those Howard the Duck. A lot of those characters randomly show up in other characters' comic books. And they couldn't do that in the movies because of all of the lawyers and the contracts. Now we're seeing a world where they can. And it's very exciting. Like, I would love to watch a movie that has nothing to do with Spider-Man, and he randomly drops down on a web to say something snarky or funny and then leaves. Like, that's what he would do in the comic book. So yeah, now we get to see them all together. But there were definitely relationships between X-Men mutants and people who were Avengers. Like T'Challa the Black Panther with Storm. And I'm just so sad we'll never see that. But they did set up a young T'Challa who is also named T'Challa and could take the Black Panther throne in probably 10 years. The kid they introduced in the Wakanda Forever could be like 17 in 10 years or something.
Right.
Young Avengers. Let's say Storm is young. Here we go.
What?
We might have something. So I have some hope. But yeah, that's a good question. It's going to be cool now that we see that Disney can do what the comics have done for decades, which is start to mix and match these characters and see what happens when their powers combine or conflict or their motivations conflict, but they're all technically good guys or heroes in our mind. So things are going to get very interesting.
Yes, very, very cool. And we were talking about Spider-Man not too long ago. And from being here in New York, I see you playing this new Spider-Man game that came out on PlayStation. Tell us about that.
Yes, so
it looks really cool.
So good. Okay, so there's Spider-Man 2 has just recently been released on PlayStation 5. It is one of the most beautifully graphicized, I don't know the word. It's the most beautiful games I've ever played. It's made by Sony, which means since they own the PlayStation hardware, they're able to push the PlayStation to its limits. They know, as the game developers, what this hardware can do. And it does all kinds of things that I didn't even know the PS5 could do. There's stuff that the ways that the controller reacts to your actions that make things challenging. The cutscenes are just so seamless to the gameplay that I feel like I'm watching a movie. It's just out of this world. And then, just like Spider-Man 1, which was on PlayStation 4, Spider-Man 2 keeps us in New York City, but this time they expanded the map so you're not only in the Manhattan borough, but you actually get to explore Queens and Brooklyn. And Spider-Man's from Queens, which is really fun. And Miles Morales, who is the other Spider-Man, aside from Peter Parker, is from Brooklyn. So it all makes sense. And I can just spend hours swinging around the city and looking for places that I recognize in real life. Like, that's how good and detailed these game makers made this game.
Yeah, and we actually were in Brooklyn tonight, out and about for dinner, and you told me to remember a certain spot, and you would show me the game. So we need to do that after we record this podcast.
Yes, I'm going to show you the exact spot in Dumbo, a neighborhood in Brooklyn, where people, and tourists specifically, always pause to take a picture down the street because it's a great shot of the Manhattan Bridge. And there was a little mini storyline in the game where you get to go there, and it's part of the map. So I'm going to show you, and it's going to be really exciting. The game overall, highly recommend. 5 out of 5. I haven't finished it yet. I'm actually taking my time now because I don't want to finish it too soon. So I'm trying to beat all the side missions. If you're a fan of the Miles Morales PlayStation game, with Spider-Man 2, they're all together. So now you get to play as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales interchangeably to get through the storylines of this new game. And there's just some really fun storylines that you get to play out. It's so inclusive. I can't even believe how inclusive this game is for diversity. At one point, as Peter Parker, as Miles Morales, because he's a student in college, in the game, you get to do all these college missions and help his friends. What are coworkers called if they're students? I guess nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
His friends. I
feel like there is a word for it, right? But I can't remember it.
He helps his student friends, and one of them is a teenage guy, or 20s, it's college, I guess, and he wants to ask, no, it is high school. He wants to ask a boy that he likes, that he's been dating, to the prom, or to homecoming. So he enlists the help of Miles Morales as Spider-Man to help him ask his boyfriend out to homecoming. And you do all these like funny things, like holding up the banner and getting the boyfriend to like come to the quad where the other guy is waiting. And it just happens so seamlessly. Like, there's nothing weird about it. It's just a really cute couple that's going to homecoming. And they happen to be both boys and they're gay. And Miles doesn't even think twice about it. And I can't even imagine playing this game as a teenager and seeing that. That's so nice.
Right.
And there's more of that too, specifically LGBT. There's a lot of rainbow flags in places you would probably find them in those neighborhoods in New York City. And also, Black Cat is one of the characters. She was from Spider-Man 1. She's one of those half villain, half hero characters where she does what's good for her. Kind of like Catwoman in the DC Batman world. But Black Cat, they revealed... she needed Spider-Man's help to get back to her girlfriend in Paris. And it was just that matter of fact. It was like, I need help. I need to save my girlfriend. She's in Paris. And then the story kept going. And I was like, oh my God, what? I'm like, I'm the one freaking out.
I love that, though. That is very tasteful of them to include it and not make a big deal out of it, because it should just be normal.
Yeah.
Right? But then we get to have that moment, too. Like, everybody playing the game gets to have that moment, which they're probably sure most people will.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a good thing instead of anything, which that's cool.
Oh, love that. But yeah, so check that out if you are looking for a new video game to take up a lot of your time. Highly recommend Spider-Man 2. It's only available for PlayStation because it's Sony. So there you go with the lawyers again. So what a marvelous episode, right? We talked about Loki, the new Marvels movie, got to know some of the X-Men a little bit with our fun game, and then the new Spider-Man 2 video game.
Yes, it was marvelous, and thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoyed episode 163 of the Disneyholics Show.
Follow us on social media at the Disneyholics.
And if you'd like to get in touch with us, send us a message on Instagram or contact us at thedisneyholics.com. Okay, bye.
Bye.